Assalamu alaikum, you're watching Views and News and I'm Faisal Rahman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about the ongoing peace process, which is basically Pakistan sponsored one. This time the credit has been given to Pakistan by the Americans and by the other stakeholders as well. Members from Saudi Arabia, members from UAE, members from USA, Khalil Zalmiza also, and the Pakistani group. They were present in Abu Dhabi where they held meetings with the Taliban. And at the end of the day, the interesting part, one was that the Taliban basically rejected Zabiullah Mujahid, who is the spokesperson of the Taliban, very categorically mentioned that they will not talk to the Afghan regime or the Afghan government as they are puppets and they do not have any power. So they want direct negotiations with the Americans. Now, this is a great breakthrough. At least they're moving ahead, and a lot of analysts do believe that this could be the end of the 17-year-old war. Let's see where it leads and what are the areas of negotiations and discussion. That is pretty important as well. But now it seems that the ice is melting and they are settling at some level, and most likely things will proceed from here. And I think credit goes to Pakistan. If you remember, there was this letter sent by Mr. Donald Trump, the US President, to Prime Minister Imran Khan Saab, in which he requested Pakistan to sort of play a very vital and positive role in bringing in the Taliban for the negotiations. And this is what Pakistan has brilliantly done. But let's see where it leads. These are important, key, I would say, stakeholders. Pakistan has suffered too much. The UAE, obviously the office is in Doha, but UAE and the Saudis, they're also playing a very, I would say, considerable role in this particular overall situation. And the Americans, now they have realized that at the end of the day, the bombing or the war wasn't a solution. The actual solution was always political. And now they are trying to foster on that. Obviously, US has always looked upon Pakistan as a country which has done so much, but they never sort of gave that overall support to Pakistan. Rather, the CSF support was withdrawn and so many other issues as well. Let's see if this process begins to move forward. Let's hope the relationship between Pakistan and United States of America do improve, because currently the Americans are looking at Pakistan from the Afghan prison. That prism, interestingly, is there, but that is not the only sort of engagement we had with the Americans. They have been with us for such a long time. Pakistan has been in their side when you talk about center or seat or otherwise. But still, during the last couple of years, things are not that great. Now, to talk about this, we have with us in our studio, on my right, is Ambassador Umar Khan Ali Sherzai Saab. He has served in Afghanistan. He's also served in Saudi Arabia as an ambassador. Thank you very much, sir, for taking out your time and talking to us. We also have with us Brigadier Retired Salim Bhatt Saab. He's a senior defense analyst, sir. Thank you very much, Brigadier Saab, for taking out your time. And we have with us Shaukat Paracha Saab. Again, needs no introduction. He's a senior analyst, writer, columnist, journalist, and also an anchor person. Thank you very much, Paracha Saab. Now, Umar Khan Ali Sherzai Saab, the way things are proceeding now, it seems that there could be a legitimate sort of a solution for the Afghan problem. Despite the fact that the Taliban leadership, they are not ready to meet the Afghan authorities as they consider them puppets, but they are engaging with the Americans, with Saudis, with the group of UAE, and as well as Pakistan, as it was a Pakistan-sponsored effort, I would say, where negotiations are taking place. Your take, sir?
Well, I think it is for the first time that the Americans now are serious to bring an end to this ongoing war which has been there for decades in Afghanistan. The Americans are also tired of this war in terms of the human losses, in terms of the material losses, and the fact that they have come to the conclusion that there cannot be any military solution to this problem. So better late than never. We are glad that the Americans have realized that there could be, an end to this war only through a dialogue and through talks, not through bombs and not through guns. And what I see is that the positive thinking is that when Donald Trump appointed Zalmay Khalilzad with the specific task to negotiate with the Taliban, and then his shuttle diplomatic missions to Pakistan, to UAE, to Saudi Arabia and to Afghanistan, this time the Americans seems to be quite serious. Things would have settled quite earlier if the Americans had not intruded in between, by killing Mullah brothers and others, I think it is very sensible, very logical, and
Do you believe this could yield some sort of result, sir? I'm not saying that there's going to be a peace, absolute peace, and eventually the forces would move out on ASAP basis. No, sir, it is not going to be like that. But at least they're moving in the right direction, and at some stage you believe that things will settle down.
well, of course, things cannot be done overnight. Everything takes its own time, and it is a very long drawn war. So, of course, it has to take its course, but it is a right step in the right direction.
All right. So you think this is pretty positive and will be of a
Absolutely.
lot of
I
benefit?
hope that positive results would come out because the Americans have realized that they have to talk to Taliban.
So finally they have realized
Finally,
that
they have realized
Afghanistan
and they have started
has to have a
negotiations.
political solution.
And-
War is not an option anymore.
And the fact that without Pakistan, peace in Afghanistan is impossible.
Sir, they sidelined Pakistan for quite some time, but
And-
at the end of the day, they
and
realized.
and therefore they could not solve the problem. Therefore, when now they have realized that without Pakistan, peace in Afghanistan is impossible. And I am glad that the present government is giving it full attention and has taken it seriously. The foreign minister is playing a very active role in this, and the prime minister himself
He's
is
leading from the front,
taking
yes, sir.
keen interest in
Yeah,
this particular.
yeah. Now, Brigadier Sahab, Prime Minister Imran Khan Sahab on multiple occasions has said that, we have tried our level best to bring in peace in Afghanistan. But unfortunately, the only way forward is to hold talks. Interestingly, Imran Khan used to be called as Taliban Khan, if you remember, and he was labeled as somebody who is always supporting them. And if you remember, he said, okay, why don't they open up an office in Islamabad or in Pakistan for that matter? At least things should proceed. Now, sir, at the end of the day, this is what everybody else has also realized, in particular, the Americans. Your take, sir. So finally moving in the right direction, as earlier mentioned by Ambassador Saab.
Right. I think first we should see the context and the background in which this process, long-awaited process, has just begun. So for me, this is beginning of a long process. There can't be a quick fix to this. Pakistan, of course, has been facilitating in the last 15 years. It had been Pakistan take that whenever peace has to return to Afghanistan, it has to be Afghan-led and Afghan-owned, and it has to be all-inclusive. So now America, as Ambassador Saab was saying, has finally realized that Pakistan take on the subject was right, and you see in just last 1 month, thing aggravated because of Trump's tweet, counter tweet by very blunt one and very bold one by our own Prime Minister. Then suddenly Zalmay Khalilzad comes in, Pakistan facilitate meeting at Doha, which has happened twice.
This is the third meeting that they're having now, I guess.
And now this is in the backdrop of the letter that surprisingly Trump preferred to write to Pakistan. I'm sure it must have been drafted by Zalmay Khalilzad himself, who is called King Khan in some close circle in the White House. So it's a very clever move. Pressure tactics, the good cop, bad cop tactics, all taking place. But having said all that, I think it's a very positive beginning, and it's a beginning of a process in which I think if they can
And this
agree,
process is not time-bound, right?
right, not really, because
But they have to have a specific deadline also, sir.
I don't think we can put a timeline tag on this process. Reason being that there are multiple factors that we have to factor in order to determine a roadmap which will ultimately guide towards some lasting peace and stability in Afghanistan. Rightly said that peace in Afghanistan, world realizes without Pakistan is not possible, but I would tend to slightly differ with that statement that we often hear from our diplomats and from our government functionaries. My personal view is that Pakistan is one of the stakeholders in this process because we are being directly and adversely affected country because of the instability in Afghanistan.
absolutely correct, yeah.
But then Pakistan alone cannot be given the responsibility or expected that we should be able to use a magic wand that will bring around peace in Afghanistan, because if we try to project ourselves in that way, the disappointment associated with this in case of failure would also bring a lot of windfall for us. So therefore we have to be careful when we are trying to project ourselves. We can at best bring the horse to the water, and horse in that way is all the stakeholders that will sit on the table. But we are associated, overly associated with our leverages on Taliban, which is not as wholesome and as complete as world tends to believe. Taliban are very independent, fiercely independent entity, and they take their decision with a view that suits them. They don't care much what suits Pakistan, but they will always see their convenience and their own objectives. For example, if there are insurgents, so who are the main stakeholders in the whole game is the Afghan government, that is not recognized by the Taliban from day one till today. Even when this talk is happening, second day today, they have refused to talk to the Afghan government. Likewise, they have always, number one talk point is that the main bane of contention, the biggest hurdle in Afghanistan peace is the presence of the foreign forces who have to vacate in order to enable us to talk to you seriously. So can this be delivered? Can this objective and can this demand be delivered by the Afghan government? Not at all. It has
Now,
to
this
be.
is something pretty interesting. And now, Raja Saab, we always hear this sentence, Afghan-led and Afghan-owned. Now, when you look at the other side of the story, let's hear what the Taliban had to say. They say that this is an illegitimate government. We do not recognize it. It doesn't have any power. It's a puppet regime. So how it can be Afghan-led and Afghan-owned? So that is primarily the reason that they want to hold talks directly with the Americans. So what sort of a role do you see of the Afghan government? They are there, but maybe they have met, had a cup of tea, but the negotiations with them never took place, sir.
To begin with, this time it's really not Afghan-led, and it could be Afghan-owned, but it's not Afghan-led.
Okay.
It is State Department-led. And it was decided when Mike Pompeo visited Pakistan first time, you know, and he had a joint briefing with Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi. That's why Zalmay Khalilzad was appointed as special representative of Secretary Pompeo for reconciliation in Afghanistan. And all that what has happened so far followed that meeting in Islamabad. It is obvious that it's a State Department led. When you say Afghanistan government is on the back foot, they are not part of the negotiating process, there are two aspects. The one is that Taliban announced it on last Eid ul-Fitr that they want to have direct talks with Americans, you know, when ceasefire was announced. The Americans responded positively and now has been something that is in front of us, some visuals at least. Number two is when you say Afghan government is not part of the talk, the American sitting over there, the residual forces over there, they remain in touch with Afghan government. Afghan government to say they cannot take any decision which is not patronized by the Americans over there. So practically it makes no difference whether Ashraf Ghani's representative is sitting there or not. I mean, it was a strange formula of unity government that the both parties who were American sponsored there, one lost and the other won, but both are in the government. One is president, the other is chief executive. You see, the real powers over there representing the other side of Afghanistan, other side mean other than Taliban, they are the Americans. And it's good that the Americans are directly talking to Afghanistan, to Taliban now. This could be, you know, seen in another way that
there are skepticism about the success that you taken up with Ambassador Excellency. In a way, many people think that since Russians they have jumped in, they had 2-3 rounds in Moscow. One was with the senior officials of the region. Then 12 countries ministerial meeting took
Yes.
place. Then Chinese, they are also, the Chinese leadership is also very interested in stability, peace and development of Afghanistan, because they are also a neighbor. On the Pamir North, you know, their borders are directly
Linked, yes.
attached with Afghanistan. So they are a stakeholders. Many people in Pakistan or elsewhere, they do feel that since China and Russia, they are also making advances inside Afghanistan for peace and reconciliation. Americans have to gear up this process, that they should engage Taliban. But whosoever engages or whosoever makes some progress, whatever it is, you know, it's good for peace. It is basically a step forward towards peace. How small it could be, how slow it could be, but steady is needed. That at least it has been a long time, bloodshed is there. 40 long years, more than that even, a tiny nation in South Asia that's suffering from instability, from bomb, from destruction, from
You
death,
name it
know,
and that problem does
and
exist in
that
Afghanistan.
problem is there. Of course, Brigadier Saab is very right that it's a thorny process, especially in a country like Afghanistan, where tribal system is there, factions are there. If you accede to demands of one faction, the other faction could have some other demands. But march toward peace should sustain. March towards stability should sustain. And obviously, if China and Pakistan at the trilateral level, they can contribute for development in Afghanistan, or for that matter other neighboring countries, Central Asians are there, Iranians are there. If they can collectively contribute something which can ensure development and peace and security over there, we all should do. All the countries in the region and those who have been there in Afghanistan, they owe a lot to it, because it's third generation of Afghanistan that's suffering from this blood and destruction. Finally, this process is moving. Saudi Arabia, leading Muslim country, is there. I think Saudi Arabia has a pivotal role to play. They have the influence both inside Afghanistan among all the factions, whether they are the Afghan government or the resisting forces, including Taliban, or it is Pakistan or the Central Asian state, Turkey, for example, and other related parts. Saudi
So
Arabia,
they have a lot to do also.
Yes.
We can't rule them out basically, because maybe they have a smaller role, but they have a very important role. Now, sir, one important area now. Now, the content of the draft, which we can call the negotiation sort of a chalk. Now, sir, when you talk about the exchange of prisoners, that is has been done, will be done, and there has to be some more negotiation on that. You talk about the withdrawal of troops. That is one of the major demand of the Taliban. Then you talk about the significant role, obviously, of Pakistan, because that is also very, very important. So we have to look after our own national interests. We definitely we have to see. Then you talk about the territory currently in the control of the Taliban. They say that whatever area they have in their control will remain in their control. So it seems that the Taliban now are talking from the position of strength. Do you think the Americans are really eager to withdraw gracefully from Afghanistan? I think gracefully is a wrong word, but just to have an exit and face saving, let me put it that way. Do you think they want some safe?
Well, President Obama was very wise, when he had announced the withdrawal of the troops, phase-wise from Afghanistan, because he had understood the Afghan politics and this war and the complications that he thought that they would encounter. He very wisely had decided to withdraw their forces, but after Trump came and with all his forceful speeches and all that. First he announced that he will withdraw all his forces, but all of a sudden again he took a U-turn and announced that no, the forces will remain in Afghanistan. But now Trump is more concentrating on his economy. So for him now the priority is to strengthen his economy, and one of the major chunk of the American budget which is being consumed in Afghanistan, he thinks that is going,
That's going in waste.
it is going just in a sea and with no benefits accruing, rather the problems are compounding day by day. So in the first instance, I would say that it is a very wise decision, as although it is quite late, but a very wise decision that they should announce the phased withdrawal of their force, and it has to be one of the clauses of this agreement. Secondly, Brigadier Saab said that he deferred a little with what I said. But I would say, and then he admitted also that Pakistan is a stakeholder. When Pakistan is a stakeholder, certainly peace cannot return to Afghanistan unless you take it on board all the stakeholders. Well, we are the stakeholders, Iranians are the stakeholders, China is the stakeholder. So we have to make sure that all these stakeholders are taken on board. Americans, they tried their level best that if they could find a solution to this problem without Pakistan, and therefore they have been bringing lot of Indian investment and lot of Indian intelligence and what not to Afghanistan to make sure that they could achieve their objectives without Pakistan's participation. But that is not possible and will never be possible, because Pakistan is a very strong stakeholder in the whole matters.
I think the most important.
Peace in Afghanistan and stability in Afghanistan directly impacts Pakistan. So we are more concerned about the peace in Afghanistan rather than anybody else. So one of the reasons that the Americans are now serious is their economic reasons. Secondly, that the Americans have also now, as Paracha Saab rightly said, that now other players, the Chinese, the Russians have also come into the play. Conferences in Russia and then in China on Afghanistan. So now they want to speed up this process so that the others do not take any advantage of their position.
And do you think the Americans have realized this? And that is one of the primary reasons that they want an exit.
Absolutely, and frankly speaking, an exit, whether you call it an honorable exit, I think it is still an honorable exit if they leave. Because today, more than 70% of the Afghan territory is being controlled by the Taliban. This is an admitted fact. And the Americans know for sure about this factual
and their influence is
ground
growing
reality.
Every day.
And now
They have
the
a lot of
Taliban,
support at the ground level also, sir.
and now the Taliban, as you rightly said, now they are participating in these talks from a position of strength, and a very, very strong strength, not that they are just participating.
And they have realized, and the other party, they have also realized.
They have
now,
realized.
Now, sir, one important area is about the demands of Pakistan. For example, we have always said that, the more involvement of the Indians means that, sort of less interest of Pakistan. But obviously they have realized now the Indians are quiet at the moment. Obviously, Pakistan and China are on the same page. But one thing which is kind of, I was thinking about was that when you talk about UAE and Saudi Arabia, obviously we all know the kind of role they earlier had during Afghan Jihad. And then we talk about Iran as a major stakeholder in this because they have their borders and they do understand the dynamics, what's going on in Afghanistan. Do you think, sir, at some stage the interest of Iran will be compromised because of the presence of UAE and Saudi Arabia, in these talks basically, sir?
Thank you very much for this wonderful question. If you hadn't asked, I would, in any case, bring into discussion this. Right. The one point that I came to your program today was lurking in my mind that it is not a cricket match of Pakistan cricket team playing with New Zealand in UAE, Dubai or Sharjah. It's a very serious event
Absolutely, it's about
happening.
our national security, sir.
When we are claiming to be the most important stakeholder, with which I deferred, and I have my reasons, then why it is not happening in Islamabad? Why it is happening in UAE? If Pakistan has made all the efforts to make it happen, then take the credit for it and be the venue for this. One factor could be you do not want to annoy your brotherly country Iran beyond certain limits. That could be one. Enabling UAE and Saudi Arabia to participate more comfortably outside Qatar because they don't
Iranian
have
senior officials
diplomatic
were
ties.
present in Pakistan, and I'm sure they must have discussed this.
Right.
Well, sir.
The other factor could be that they don't have diplomatic relation, UAE and Saudi with Qatar at the moment. 2 years
Yes.
last, you see. So this is one more reason. So for me, if it had happened in Islamabad, then the pride ambassador was mentioned that Pakistan should have had the diplomatic pride. It should have been even greater. But having said that, my point that ambassadors were trying to explain was that Pakistan, though we are important stakeholder, but we are not the in operational plane or the tactical plane. We may be the very, very important stakeholder. But in the strategic plane, well, what is the competition going on in Afghanistan? Is it between Pakistan or America, or is it between America and Russia and China? So how do we become the most important stakeholder bringing peace in Afghanistan when the bigger stakeholders are playing their own games and peace is not happening? So it's not because of Pakistan.
And sir, the role of Iranians have increased over a period
what
of
I'm trying
time.
to say
The
is
kind of influence they have currently. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Paracha Saab. It is believed that when you talk about the print media or radio or television for that matter, even on websites and all, it is believed that around 60 to 70% of all this is either controlled or owned by the Iranians. So you can well imagine the kind of influence they have on the minds of the Afghan people. That is also pretty important. I'll put that question to you, but sir, please complete your statement.
Faisal, I was trying to mention that, see, Afghanistan ambassadors has remained ambassador there. He would understand million times better than us that Afghanistan has remained an arena for the great game for the last over 200 years. Tsarist Russia, British Empire, Soviet Union versus America, now it's Russia versus America. Russians have been openly saying we'll make another Vietnam for them in Afghanistan. It's happening. They have been playing their own role. Now, what is happening in Afghanistan, in my strategic view, is that it is not as important for America to win in Afghanistan than to make sure that their strategic competitor, most of the Russian, do not reassert itself into Afghanistan. So they would not allow them to win.
Primarily, that is one of the
Praja's
most
point.
important reason they are not vacating Afghanistan. They want to keep
Right.
their
So
presence
now
there.
that brings to another point that we got to keep in mind the clashes, the contradiction within America. For example, now we are trying to say in tactical ways and operational ways, oh, the peace process is bigger and everything is going to settle down and peace and stability is going. We are giving false hopes to the people of Afghanistan and Pakistan who are the most affected. In my view, till the time the strategic competition, the competitors do not compromise on their strategic interests, peace will remain evasive in Afghanistan. I'm sorry to disappoint people listening to me, but my strategic vision is that if peace has to finally come back to Afghanistan, there has to be a compromise between Russia and America. Then there has to be a compromise between China and Russia and America.
So you talk about Ukraine issue, you talk about Crimea, you talk about Syria, you talk about Afghanistan.
Right.
So they have their own interest, the Russians, and under the command of Vladimir Putin, I would say they know what they are doing. They exactly know what their
To
business
the
is all about.
exclusivity of Russian, how can the world expect Pakistan to bring peace? So that was my point. We should not overly project ourselves that we can make something happen. Well, we can't because we are not the major stakeholder, because the major stakeholder in strategic sense remains the bigger power. So it's a competition, strategic competition between major powers. Now see, when this is happening, Saturday, we had foreign minister meeting with China and Pakistan, you see, and Afghanistan. Russia has held 3 meetings in Moscow. Iran is a secluded boy at the moment. They are not being considered, but they are a very big stakeholder,
Absolutely.
not only for
I think
Taliban.
after Pakistan, Iranians have the
Right.
highest.
So all bordering, for example,
level of
where is
stakes.
Zalmay, shuttling? He's gone to Tajikistan, he's gone to Turkmenistan, he's gone to Qatar, UAE, Saudi, Pakistan. He's shuttling to all the countries which are bordering Afghanistan, less Iran. So Iran has a large border with Afghanistan, and even historically the Herat region, the western Afghanistan, had been historically part of Iranian Empire. So they still lay
That's the Shia
claim on
population
that.
there.
You see, so they exert a lot of influence in Afghanistan. So peace is not as simple as we are trying to believe. This negotiation would not bring around peace, but it definitely agree. It will set a roadmap on which all stakeholders, maybe there are about 14 stakeholders, who have to sit together. It's not
And they have to
negotiation
do
with Taliban and
brainstorming,
Afghan
yeah.
government or USA will bring around. No. But last point I want to highlight, General Joseph Dunford, who is the Chairman Joint Chief of US Armed Forces, and he's the authority. He has just said on Friday that leaving Afghanistan militarily would be disaster. But because if you leave, there will be vacuum that will be filled up by the non-state
That
actors.
is the ideal environment for civil war,
Right. So he has said a lot, which is
which
exactly
nobody can afford,
contradicting.
sir. Even the Afghan government or the Russians or the Chinese, even Pakistan or
So
Iran
what
for
I'm
that
saying
matter,
is, what
yeah.
White House is trying to do, their own DOD does not agree with that. You see, number one demand
It
of
seems that
Taliban
there
is
is a
leave.
confusion within the ranks of the American
So that is the point.
decision
The
makers, I
State
would say.
Department, the White House, the CIA and military, they have different take on Afghanistan. So first they got to put their own house in order before they start
Coming back.
asking.
Now, Pracha Saab, first of all, sir, the influence of the Iranians, because that was something pretty important. Obviously, they are very important stakeholders, if not number one, number two, I would say. And their silent role is also being discussed, sir. Now, Iranians, do you think, sir, when it comes to Pakistan, and because, we are having a very, I would say, not a great time with them at the moment, but it seems that, at some stage, Afghanistan issue is solved, then, we can always proceed forward. But currently, it seems that, everybody is playing their own game, trying to make sure that their national interests should be safeguarded, and unfortunately, there is a clash then.
It's very natural that every country, the primary job is to safeguard their own national interest.
And makes a lot of sense.
It's natural. Let's accept it that if there is divergence of so many things, so many countries, so many powers on Afghanistan, this divergence is natural, and the world has lived it like this way. For example, the Syrian crisis. American wanted to bomb the Russian fleet, came into, and then they did not. What about, you rightly pointed out, Crimea? That the world, the West
They
has
all
to
witnessed
live
the
with it,
referendum and everything, yes.
The West has to live with it. Certainly, it's natural, and primarily that has caused the prolongation of this crisis, which is called Afghan crisis, Afghan problem. But it has to be solved. If all conferences, all meetings, they aim at solving this problem, there should be some solution. When you talk of Iran or Iranian role, if we accept, as Brigadier Saab very rightly pointed out, that United States is the
Major state.
major stakeholder or stakeholder number one, because they are physically there,
Yeah.
then it's not Obama administration that was having some kind of overt or covert working relation with Iranian regime, because Iran contributed for stability of Iraq. They were part of the American endeavors, that made some shape of a state structure in Iraq. But this is Trump, Trump regime. This is Trump era, this is Trump administration, which is trying rather to isolate Iran from everywhere. You know how much effort was made to come down to the nuclear agreement, and Trump administration withdrew it. Then look at the current relationship between Saudi Arabia, Iran, UAE, Iran, but you know, Jared
Let's put it
Kushner,
G6 plus Iran.
Jared Kushner being so close to Prince Mohammed bin Salman. So the equation is not the way that Iranians can be asked to play a major role. As for this region is concerned, or 14 countries are concerned, we had a platform which is called Istanbul process, or
Yes.
Heart of Asia. And here it was in Pakistan in 2016 or 15 December that quadrilateral group was formed: China, Pakistan, Afghanistan and United States. But that forum also could not bring anything, you know.
One
and-
meeting was held in 2015 when the death of Mullah Muhammad Umar was
Yes,
disclosed,
yes,
and the whole process got derailed.
Yes.
Was it after that,
In
right?
fact, it was not Mullah Muhammad Umar, because Mullah Umar's death preempted the second Afghan talks. You know, the first round was held in
Murray, yeah.
and the second Taliban delegation was here that night. It was August 30 or 31st, you know. The quadrilateral process was started in April 2016. It was decided to frame a mechanism how to approach Taliban, but Mullah Mansoor Akhtar was bombed, you know,
Was
through a
killed
drone,
in
and that's
Balochistan,
why
yeah.
this quadrilateral process was stopped. One off meeting was held in Muscat, but you know, no headway. So practically, by all means, this quadrilateral mechanism is defunct now.
Okay.
And this is the new, you know, mechanism that Zalmay Khalilzad is leading, and now there are talks in Middle East. You know, Pakistan is a major stakeholder or not. Pakistan has a major role to play or not. At least Trump or US administration, and for that matter most of the Western capitals, they do believe that Pakistan has a major role. I mean, if they are writing first they are saying do more. Look at the tweets, you know, that we
Yeah.
gave billions of dollars to you, but you did nothing for us.
The last tweet said they give us a dam. That's what
They
tweet
did
said.
nothing for us. They
I mean,
did damn for us. You
yeah,
know?
damn for us, yeah.
Even if we do not have the major role to play, and obviously, you know, we are not Afghan Taliban, we are not Afghan government, we are a neighbor. You can have some influence on your friends, but you do not have a
You can't twist
remote
their arm, yeah,
control.
absolutely.
As simple as that. What Pakistan can do, for example, Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar, who asked for Abdul Ghani Baradar to be there? Zalmay Khalilzad, mean US administration. So Pakistan cooperated, and Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar was released 6 years back. The then Afghan president Hamid Karzai Saab, he asked for it. The current Afghan foreign minister Salahuddin Rabbani Saab, he was the chairman of High Peace Council.
Yes.
So he came to
Pakistan, I remember.
brought this message from the then President Hamid Karzai Saab, and Pakistan released Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar at that time. Now Pakistan has allowed him to go, you know, to Qatar or to other Middle East. This is the kind of role that Pakistan can play, and he is not the one. I remember 37 of high-ranking Taliban leaders
They were also
were
released, yes.
by Pakistan to facilitate this process. So if we are the major stakeholder or not, if we are the major facilitator or not, at least the world thinks so. The Trump administration thinks so, and that's why after you know, reiterating do more, now they have written letter. And Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, having a very close relation with Pakistani establishment, you can say Pakistani forces, you can say Pakistan army, you can say, no, they are literally on one page. So if the military leadership and the political leadership is on one page, and the political leader of Pakistan, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, is today saying, the tweet that you are showing on your screen, that's also available in English. Prime Minister said, we will do whatever we can do for the peace in Afghanistan. I think this honest, you a reiteration of Pakistan's Prime Minister should be taken positively. I believe
I think
that
it has been
Pakistan
taken
is,
positively.
and I believe Pakistan is determined to play its role, because we all believe, we don't say, we believe that peace in Afghanistan is in Pakistan's interest.
Absolutely. I think this is now. So, last quick comment for all three of you gentlemen. I was just told that I'm having, I think, maximum 2 minutes more. Sir, are you hopeful? Are you optimistic?
I'm absolutely optimistic about this whole process which has started, because now everybody has realized that there has to be an end to this ongoing war. And I would also like to mention that why Iran is quiet, because Iran feels that they are not getting benefited out of the fighting in Afghanistan. So peace, it is also in the interest of Iran that peace and tranquility
Because they
should-
are already engaged in Syria and elsewhere
well,
in
they
Yemen.
are
and, you know,
engaged there, but they would not get themselves engaged here. They would not oppose any idea which would prevent peace in Afghanistan.
So peace on any term, any condition
Well,
is accepted for them.
in fact, Iranians are more interested in the withdrawal of the US forces. And I think that Pakistan has taken on board the Russians, the Chinese, and all other stakeholders because of these various meetings that our foreign minister
All right,
had
all
in
right.
various
And I'm sure,
capitals.
sir, that is.
And that points out that Pakistan has taken them on board, that we are going to facilitate
Got
these
it,
talks.
got it, sir.
And I'm sure, inshallah, that
Things will
this
be better.
process certainly.
Brigadier Sahab, quick comment, sir.
Good, it's a good start, positive start, and Pakistan has taken a good lead on that, and we should remain optimistic that it would usher in some kind of laying out the roadmap for a long process. But in my view, nothing significant is going to happen in the near future.
Do you think once
but
again
Trump
the
is
Indians
under
can play a
pressure.
dirty role?
Please allow me to say that Trump is under pressure because he wants to pull out from Afghanistan before the next president election in 2020 are closing in. Right, because that was the major promise he made to his people, that he's going to withdraw from Afghanistan. So he is under
now
political
he doesn't
pressure.
have a choice. He can't
Then
back
there are presidential elections right in the beginning of the coming year in Afghanistan, which we suspect would be postponed, and they are already trying.
Yes.
So it is important for the incumbent government in Afghanistan that this process should start taking place.
Brigadier Sahab.
You see, it's a step forward. There is no doubt, and I cannot say that it will be accomplished in very near future. But the very speculation or very anticipation of postponing of the presidential election in Afghanistan will pave a way for a broad-based understanding where different factions, different components of Afghan society can be taken on board to meet some of the conditions. For example, when this Afghan constitution was written, Taliban or the resisting forces were not part of it. When this political order was erected in Afghanistan, the resisting forces were not part of it. So I think all these measures could pave way for a broader understanding. Obviously, in a year or so, things cannot be settled down. The 40-year,
Obviously, it is going to take a long time.
But
But at least you're optimistic that the direction is right.
You get a direction, and we can hope that our Afghan brothers, they get a durable peace for their life, for their endeavors.
Inshallah, sir, let's hope and pray for that, because that is what the entire region wants now. Thank you very much, Prasad. Brigadier Sahab, it was a pleasure. Thank you very much, Ambassador Sahab. That's all we have for this hour. I'll see you again at 8 tomorrow. Till then, you take good care of yourself. Khuda Hafiz from our side.
For the economy, for growth essentially, we all need to be on the same page. You can do a different thing as long as it's aligned with what the country is saying. Board of Investment, for instance, they've started a program called Sprint, in which they've taken 8 economic indicators which will tell you about the health of the investment that arrives in your country. As this young gentleman said, are we not scared that it's only Chinese investment? No, we're really happy it's Chinese investment. Who else invested in your country in the last 5 to 10 years? Everybody comes, they run away. Because I said, a businessman is not coming here for the good of your health. They're coming for their own selves, right? If they're not going to get a decent return on their buck, they will disappear. That's how the world works. I wish it were different. I wish people invested from the goodness of their heart. Doesn't work that way. So, we're trying to ensure it's a parallel structure. It's like your motorways. You've got 4 tracks going this way, 4 that way. Each one of them has to run in tandem. So just imagine it. It's your provinces, it's your federation, it's your private sector, it's your investment sector. So everybody will come together. It will take time. I'll tell you, if it hasn't worked in 71 years, if we repeat those mistakes, nothing will improve. What we're trying to do is out of the box, and hence the resistance that you see, the fear that you see. But inshallah, it will calm down. Give it 3 months, give it 6 months, solutions will be coming forth. I don't say Pakistan will become, France in 5 years' time, but that's what we're aiming for.
Things will improve. Quick question from you, ma'am, and then the last question from the gentleman. Please.
Actually, I'm not from Pakistan. As a foreign, it was so interesting to have academic studies about its economy. The one thing that I noticed in social life in Pakistan as well, and in this debate as well, we have that we think we have a study about everything. We have assessment about every problem. Just the one thing that we don't have, it's about the management. And as I think, in your idea, it's not so important that here, if we our exporting in Pakistan, exporting, importing, everything is good. Knowledge of economy is also good. Just the one thing that we don't have here is management. The same that I share my these classmates as well. That here they are saying that you have 1 minute to speak, but here we are listening that they are speaking around more than 7 minutes. Here, a good management is so important about this. And also my question about this, that what's the relation of economy about this going, coming, high and low of this foreign exchange international that nowadays we have as a color rupees from why it's going so high and coming down back.
In the past, I think one of the flawed policies of the previous government was to stabilize rupee versus dollar artificially. So in fact, every time there was a demand on dollar which could increase its price, State Bank used to pump dollars in the open market. So basically we were subsidizing not only our imports, we were also subsidizing the consumption. So we were borrowing dollars and we were subsidizing the imports through artificially stabilizing our rupee. So our rupee was overvalued by at least 35 to 40%, and I think that since January, since Miftah Ismail's Shahid Khaqan Abbasi, when he became the Prime Minister after Nawaz Sharif, government started making some corrections, and till today almost 27% depreciation in the rupee value has already happened. So when you don't have exports, when you don't have investments, and you try to raise your foreign exchange accounts forex, so basically it's borrow dollar, and on the basis of that borrow dollar, you can't stabilize your local currency, rupee.
Farooq Saab, is it true that if we go to IMF, let's say for the bailout package, and this is going to be the 22nd time that we'll be going to IMF, but this is going to be the 13th bailout package. In that particular case, sir, is it true that one of the conditions put by IMF is that we have to, the rupee dollar should be somewhere around 150 rupees a dollar? Last question, sir.
The current government, I will talk about the Prime Minister housing scheme, that it required 168 billion US dollar. If we don't have, if we only have $8 billion in our foreign reserve, then how will finance such a huge project? What's the sources?
I don't know where you get the 180 billion or 160 billion. It's nothing to do with dollars. This is all about rupees. Three things have already taken place. The first thing is that yesterday there was a meeting at the Prime Minister's house, and 5 billion rupees of seed money has already been allocated for the housing project. In addition to that, the banks are going to be asked. The total bank lending right now in Pakistan of all the banks put together is about 7.4 trillion rupees. The State Bank has a proposal to recommend to all of the banks that 5% of that lending will be allocated for low-income housing. and that would mean about 350 billion rupees. Plus, the State Bank has a concessional facility for the same housing project of an additional 250 billion. So right now in the pool, there's about 600 billion rupees that has already been allocated. And one good thing that has come up was a World Bank guarantee, a World Bank interest. World Bank has shown an interest on a refinance facility of $1 billion. So we have $250 billion concessional facility from the State Bank, 300 billion rupees coming out of the bank lending, and $1 billion refinance facility from the World Bank. Currently, this would be enough to build something like 500,000 houses, and then the same money would be rotated over and over again. So the financial aspect of it exists in the pipeline. All we need to do is remove the impediments.
Young man, I think your question was valid, and I saw this false news report myself. It is false to the extent that there is a particular developer who is close to PTI, and he gave a press conference and he mentioned this figure of $150 billion. Anil. So you're right, but that was a wrong figure that was being quoted in the press, and I'm glad this clarification has been issued by Farooq Saib. Inshallah, we're on our way, it will be done.
I wish we had more time and we could have, in fact, asked so many more important, pertinent questions. But anyway, Suleri Saab, Dr. Farooq Saab, Ma'am Shandana, and Kakar Saab, thank you so much, sir, for being here. And thank you very much, students, for your patience and for your time. And that's all we have from Islamic University. Inshallah, I'll see you again. Till then, you take good care of yourself. Khuda Hafiz.